I'm a fantasy reader, and political science doesn't interest me in the slightest. These times we're living in calls for investigation, and it just blows my mind how these outdated, destructive ideologies have taken root in our society and are being implemented in our education system. So that brings me to David Horowitz. Shadow Party. I pretty much already knew about all this with George Soros and all the other oligarchs that support the left-wing demons. But it's good to know the facts, the stats, the terminologies. I should have started with Radical Sun, but I started with this book because it was the most recent. This came out, I think, in the 90s. But this, A Generational Odyssey, is probably one of the best autobiographies I've ever read. It's very interesting, going back from his grandfather, escaping from Marxist Russia, Ukraine, and all the Holodomor and the horrors that he experienced there. But Horowitz, being brought up as a Marxist, and he ended up funding the Black Panthers. He was like just a extreme left-wing radical, and just so stuck in those ideologies. And even though he witnessed so many crimes from the Panthers, and not just the Panthers, but there's the Black Liberation Army, the Weather Underground Organization. There's a bunch of them, and they're just like the Antifa and the BLM today. There's millions of dollars of property damage, just murders, countless murders, lives ruined, and they get away with it because the left-wing, mainstream media, right? They control the narrative. But it took a death of one of his best friends, or not his best friend, but it took a close friend dying for him to finally wake up from the trance and kind of make him realize what's going on. And he used his writing skills to kind of shine the light on the truth of what's going on. And you know what happens when you speak the truth, you get attacked. So I really enjoyed his books. Look at these evil left-wing demons, These socialist demons, they don't have anything. They just keep screaming racism, this and that. And well, let's get to the facts, Systemic racism is baseless left-wing slander. 80% of all Americans are descendants of immigrants that reached American shores after the abolition of slavery, while many others are descended from white Americans who have risked their lives to free the slaves. America accounts for less than 1% of the global slave trade of black Africans. The mythology of oppression is essential to the identities of the social justice warrior. You get to the stats here. In 2021, fatal police shootings: blacks 59, 3 of them unarmed; whites 109, 5 of them unarmed. The media doesn't tell you that. No, that's racist. Blacks, 13% of the population, commit half the crime and half the murders. But that's hate, right? They don't like facts. There's facts you won't hear on the socialist mainstream media. Socialism is the theory. Communism is the implementation. Communism proposes to enslave men by force. Socialism by vote. Cultural Marxism and critical race theory are the underpinnings of totalitarianism. CRT, critical race theory, it's fucking crap. You are your race. It's that victim mentality bullshit. They find racism in everything, anything, and they're obsessed with race. It's counter-American. It's anti-reality. And on the other hand, you got conservatism, which is about sense and survival. Leftism is the plaything of a society with too much time on its hands. These venomous and needy souls speak of toxic masculinity, but who is more toxic than the person who needs to change the whole world so that they could love themselves? In an earlier age, this sickness would have been dismissed, but today it's encouraged. Modern democratic institutions and their commercial partners have created a situation in which pandering to the human weakness and encouraging dependence is far more profitable than promoting a culture of strength and personal sovereignty. There's far more money and there's far more votes to be gained by flattering people for doing nothing and faking sympathy for them. If you want to sell potato chips and welfare checks, you appeal to the hoi polloi, the lowest common denominator. In more tribal and nationalistic times, leaders invested in making their people stronger, because only the stronger tribes and nations survived. The long-term success of a nation was the legacy of its leader. Today's globalist leaders have no true nations or people to empower. They're essentially free and fundamentally unprincipled, power-seeking agents, and as such, they want the people they manage to be weak, dependent, and easily manipulated into compliance. It's another great book I bought, Candace Owens. It's her experience and where she came from, and man, I just wish that BLM and all Antifa people would read her book, but I know a lot of them don't read, right? They just turn on the devices and let their minds get manipulated. But there's some numbers and stats from her books. In Chicago, 1/3 white, 1/3 the demographics in Chicago, 1/3 white, 1/3 black, 1/3 Hispanic. 70% of the homicides are black on black. 75% of black people are raised without fathers. LBJ, Lyndon Johnson, was responsible for destroying the nuclear family in black households. He made the welfare eligible only for single women. The Democrat Party would marry black America to the government via welfare. A deliberate attack on the black family unit in 1965. We accepted the poison of the victim narrative rather than dealing with the burden of responsibility. We began accepting handouts, or rather, we began allowing white Americans to create an illusion of progress. There is no greater example of this than the morally contemptible practice of affirmative action. Yeah. That victim mentality. A victim cannot win. A victim will never be a hero. A victim cannot heal or rise until he decides that he no longer wants to be a victim. At that moment, he decides he's not a victim, and he can rejoin society as an equal participant and choose to rise and succeed beyond the present circumstance. It's good stuff, man. Good writing. Another great story about a book about Andy, his experience of man, this guy almost got beaten to death by Antifa, and he had the balls to go into the autonomous zone in Seattle, in Chaz, and he hung out there for a week in disguise, and so he went undercover, and yeah, it's his story of his family escaping all the horrors of the communists in Vietnam, and man, the struggle to get to America, and only to end up him getting freaking attacked by these freaking crazed young communists, the BLM and Antifa. It's just mind-boggling, man. It's a very good read. I got a lot out of this book. I got a lot of notes. I'm loaded with notes. My notes are all over the place, so I like how they've made the connections with the Panthers, because I thought, we get manipulated by the mainstream media that the Panthers were kind of like, fighting against racism, and they're kind of like the good guys and stuff, but it's the same thing as BLM. And the mainstream media just protects their ass, they get away with murder. They freaking full-on cop killers. One of the leaders of the Panthers, she killed a cop, and she's praised, like she's like a queen to them. And where does she go? She goes to Cuba for sanctuary to go hide out, and yeah, she still never paid for her crimes. But although the Panther vanguard was isolated and small, its leaders were able to rob and kill without incurring the penalty of law. They will be able to do so because the left made the Panthers a law unto themselves, the same way the left has made Stalin a law unto himself, the same way the left made Fidel Castro and the Sandistas Comandantes laws unto themselves. The left was ultimately motivated not by altruism and love, but by nihilism and hate. Nihilist. They don't care about nothing, Lebowski. Nihilist. I like this one I just wrote down. The abusers of welfare. They call that the Rambos of responsibility. That's funny. But I actually, all this stuff, it just drives me crazy, because it's just a lot of negative stuff. But it's good to know. Know your enemy. Be prepared for the battle, and then build yourself up. So I got books to build myself up. Wim Hof, awesome. Awesome, great stuff. Fire in the Dark, it's like mythos, manpower stuff. Awesome, loved it. This one I thought was going to be awesome, but it's pretty much garbage. Rise and Conquer, it's pretty much same old shit. It's kind of a waste of money on this one. I thought it would be better. This one is required reading. All your rights before these socialists, social democrats come take away our rights. They're all, that's one of their main missions. To have the globalist takeover. Good to have one of these on you, So after all that's said and done, I'm just gonna finish with saying, we're at the demarcation line. Are we gonna stand for truth, freedom, common sense? Are we gonna outsource our critical thinking to mainstream media and just comply with the totalitarian state? I'll finish with this saying by Martin Luther King. Even if I knew that tomorrow the world would go to pieces, I would still plant my apple tree. I think that's a beautiful saying. Godspeed.